yourself in and get ready. The leaders in NBL Supercoach are incoming, giving you the ultimate insight to help you dominate your mates and climb up the rankings. You're now listening to the Insight NBL Show with your hosts, Matrix and Hammer.
Hello, I'm the Supercoach Matrix, and today I'm here with Hammer for our Insight NBL show. It's our preview one, as always, here on a Wednesday. Mate, how's your week been?
Mate, it's been good. I'm pumped for Heritage Round. I absolutely despise all these theme rounds outside of Heritage Round. Love the retro jerseys. I'm really excited to see them getting across the screen this week.
You know what? Your wife messaged me earlier on in the week, and I said that you should get one of those DC jerseys from last year. They were going cheap. I just know you're a huge fan of all these themed rounds.
Vomit. How's your week been, buddy?
Mate, today was an absolute stinker. But anyway, I'm here, excited to have not even a tinny today. I tell you what, I must be
Top shelf.
Top shelf. You know what? Some people really lash out and go buy themselves a nice whiskey or something. I just get off the tins and buy myself a glass bottle. But look, on today's show, we're going to go through the team previews with our schedule chat. Instead of doing our little trade analysis of the biggest trades, we're going to trial a little buy, hold, and sell, much like we do with our NRL show. We're, of course, going to go through our captain's chat, and we're going to answer your questions along the way. Mate, I should probably start with the doubles. We have Perth. We have Cairns and Adelaide on single doubles. So you get those guys, they're 1 week plays. Let's just get started with that. If you're looking at Melbourne players, they're on a double-double. And let's take into account, to get everybody's juices flowing, that Chris Goulding is out. There is a bit of news happening at the moment. Maybe we should do a breaking news segment. We have New Zealand Breakers on a triple-double, and the Bullets on whatever you want to call 8 doubles in a row. I think it was Octopath Traveller. Is that what it was called?
Let's go with that. The Octopus Run. We're right in the midst of a purple patch for the Bullets.
Yeah, it's a septuplet next week. I'm excited for that. I can't wait to get pulled off YouTube for swearing and keep on saying septuplet over and over again. But mate, some of the breaking news, and I'm not sure it needs a whole segment. Chris Goulding out for a couple weeks could open some doors.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Breaking news is pretty much dominated by the injury report pretty much tonight. Goulding's out 2 weeks. I don't know who this really opens the door for, or if it's even relevant. You're still going to have Delhi. You're still going to have Illy. So Flynn Cameron maybe gets a little uptick. The one I'm seeing probably get more minutes is going to be the import, Clark, your boy, Ian.
Yeah, he does not look like an Ian.
He doesn't look like an Ian. It always reminds me of that rap battle in 8 Mile where it's like he went to a private school and his real name's Clarence. But
Clarence Clark.
Yeah. It's probably him or Tanner Krebs that gets a little bit of a extra burn. But look, I put an article out on Patreon earlier in the week, and let me just tell you, I've put out 4 articles this week. I don't know what's come over me. But,
thanks, Sandra. Sandra Sully.
Yeah, one of them was talking about Chris Goulding, how his scores just completely dominated by points. Ian Clark is not far behind him. So unless he's actually hitting 30 points, he's not really going to be Supercoach relevant. Other breaking news, though. The Taipans on a double are welcoming back a few familiar faces.
Yeah, Pedro. Look, Cairns have been decimated. They're right there down near the bottom. I'm not 100% sure if they've got anything to play for at this stage. Honestly, some of these guys just might be playing for a contract next year, basically.
Yeah. Well, one of the guys playing for a contract next year is Adam Ford, so he's going to be trying to win every game. Look, Pedro's back. they're almost at full strength. AK Gak is potentially out for some time. But Groves is back. We'll talk about him a bit later. They might actually be full strength and look pretty good. So the sort of the caveat there is that they're on a pretty awful schedule for the next few weeks.
That's
We
that's
have
the
Jonah
worst thing.
Bolden
By the
still out for
time
New Zealand,
by
who
the
are
time they go
desperate for
pick
a
up,
big man.
I'm not interested in him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jonah Bolden
Jonah?
out for New Zealand. Taco Fall out for New Zealand. They are running out of big bodies.
Yeah, it's Menenga season again. He scored really well when obviously we expected Gillespie to be out, but when Taco hurt himself in that last game, I think he scored like 34 points. A lot of them were in points, so you can't expect that. But yeah, I expect him to score 20 plus points at the moment, and that forward center eligibility for Menenga. Look, he's the guy that's going to get the bump. There's really nobody else there. They don't have like an Anthony Lamb like they used to. Like Lopez isn't going to roll out and play center.
No. And I'm hearing that Dane Pinot might be out for a while too. I haven't got anything confirmed on that. But look, got a soft spot for Dane after he just dominated the league of, fantasy-wise a few years ago. But look, that's probably about it for breaking news. I'm seeing one of the ones pop up in the chat from Michael Higginson. Clark supposedly a game time decision for tomorrow with a hip. What are you hearing there?
Look, hip hop rap battles. I really haven't heard this yet, but if Clark's out, I mean, it has to be Cameron and everybody just slides down. I would imagine, like Cameron was good. He averaged 28 Supercoach points when Illy was out. Of course, he is a little bit more of a guard, but they might just have to throw 2-point guards. Flynn Cameron's a little bit bigger than Illy, so probably playing the two, but yeah, should get more minutes.
Yeah, I think so. Do you blow up your team for someone like that? If he's cheap enough, maybe, but I think this guard rotation is pretty set for us at the moment. Like PJC and Cotton seem to be a lock for the backcourt for a lot of the teams who've been able to afford it. And we'll talk about how you fill out your bench spot for your two guards later on. But yeah, look, a lot of considerations, and the cheaper ones are probably the ones we're considering right now.
Mate, that just about covers it for news. Let's just get straight into our
He's heating up.
We would be remiss not to bring up the big fella, Hamo from Ryan from Astute Newstead. Big fan of the show, in my DMs every single week to talk Supercoach. But if you're looking for a house, you could slide into his DMs. Let him know that we sent you. He will do an obligation-free quote. If your interest rates are above that 6%, get in contact with him. If you're looking at getting into a new house, get in contact with him. He can let you know what you can borrow, and with over 40 different lenders, he can get you the best rate due to their promotions and everything like that. Doesn't cost you a dime to get in contact with him, and not only can he help you with all of that, he'll talk to you about a bit of Supercoach as well.
Even better.
Mate, we probably should start with the Octopath Travelers themselves, the Brisbane Bullets. Now, they have a couple games this week, and we're going to be talking about that basically every week. They're playing against Adelaide, which I consider strength of schedule wise good compared due to the fact that they're missing Davis and Trez and somebody else they're missing. They're missing a lot of players for this.
That's another one we missed in breaking news. He's out, and it's sounding like it's going to be semi-long term with a bit of a hammy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, last week we were talking about Brisbane being decimated. This week, Adelaide are decimated for this first game. Of course, we'll talk about Adelaide later on, but Trez will be in for the second game. But then they play Melbourne, which I mean, they had 100 points scored against them last week. But yeah, look, Melbourne's going to be a little bit harder. We know their guards are pretty good. So yeah, if you're looking at your Batemans and especially Cooks, might struggle in the Melbourne one.
Yeah, although with Melbourne, that 3 spot, which I see Cooks playing probably more than the 1-2 in some of these matchups. Look, when Goulding was there, he was a turnstile, man. He cannot defend his own shadow. So, look, interesting to see who they start. I don't think they have a lot of great wing defenders outside of Ilian and Delhi. So, look, could be on here.
Absolutely. I will probably have a chat about Tyrell Harrison, and I haven't heard any news on Josh Bannon.
No.
So yeah, we'll wait for that. I don't think you played Josh Bannon anyway. You probably got off him last week, so we'll worry about that a bit later on.
Everyone except
Our
me.
next, yeah. Look, our next team's Perth. This is the last of their doubles. They play Illawarra,
Mhm.
who've been playing really good at the moment. Of course, you got to have a look at a matchup like Pinder against Froling. Cotton, I'm not worried about who he plays against.
No. Cotton on a down night still pretty good. Look, we saw him last round. He had 23 in a game where he really struggled. Look, it's acceptable, and that's really sort of his floor. And then obviously had the 77 with the 59-point game and rewarded everyone who had him, and especially those who captained him. I don't think there's anything really to debate. If you can afford Cotton and PJC as your backcourt and you already have them, I think that's what you roll with. Cotton's just a set and forget. We've talked all year that he's a guy you can possibly play on a single. You're absolutely going to play him on a double, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the thing with me isn't, you know, do I play PJC and Cotton or anybody else? The question for me is who do I captain? And we're going to go to our captain segment later, but that's the real question for me. I'm playing Cotton every single week, regardless of who he plays against. But Illawarra are pretty good defensively. What do you think about? So we've got Days and Mason Peatling playing against Doolittle. He's one that you could have captained last week. He was pretty good. But then we've got Doolittle against Trez in the next one. What do you see with Doolittle's outlook this week?
Yeah, look, I think Doolittle's a hold. A lot of us have held him, through this 5-game stretch of doubles. He's been interesting, right? They've been playing a lot of point forward. I don't know how well that suits him. His assist numbers have been good, but his rebounds have been well down. We're missing that double-double kick that we normally get from him. Uh,
Oh,
does the matchup with Trez work for him? Look, I think Doolittle has the ability to play point, which is going to draw Trez out, and he'll have an advantage there. But Trez is going to eat him up on the boards.
I
Uh,
got mixed up. I'd had too many Carlton
of course you did.
dries. Trez is of course out. I just
Yeah,
said it earlier. Trez is of course out for that second game. So
yeah,
actually Doolittle's outlook's not looking too bad.
yeah. No, without Trez, that looks a lot better. Thanks for leading me down the garden path. Because
Yeah,
you
don't
look
worry.
at you look at the matchups with Adelaide. They're going to have to play Humphreys at centre. They're going to play Jarrell Martin possibly at the 4, bit of Lat Mayan, I suppose. Those matchups are so favourable for Doolittle. And Jarrell Martin's going to be gassed having to try and guard him the length of the court when he's bringing the ball up. I don't think he's got the foot speed. Latmain doesn't have the strength. I really like it. We've talked a bit over the last couple of weeks about an exit strategy for Perth. I've seen some of the squads popping up in our Patreon chat where guys are still holding 5 or 6 Perth Wildcats. It's probably now a good time to talk about that exit strategy because I think we need to start shedding a few of them considering they go into a pretty putrid schedule after this week.
Yeah, I mean, like it's okay to carry one or two a bit further, but if you've got 4 or 5, it's probably pretty good to move one on, maybe a little bit earlier. So yeah, we'll look at that. Um,
Yeah.
Mate, Melbourne 2 doubles in a row.
Yeah.
Now New Zealand have been funny ones, hilarious even. New Zealand, sorry, that's just me in general. New Zealand have not scored that well, and we'll talk about them probably next. But New Zealand have not scored that well, but they've kind of dragged teams down when they've played against them and brought them down into the dirt. Probably a bit of a concern if you're looking at a 2-week play with some of these Melbourne players. But then Melbourne plays Brisbane, which, I'd consider probably a pretty good matchup the way they're going.
Yeah, Melbourne. Look, let's talk about who we're looking at here. It's probably Jack White, isn't it? That's about the only one we're targeting on Melbourne.
Yeah, so he's playing against whoever they decide to throw at power
The fourth
forward
spot.
in New Zealand, which could be
Yep.
anyone.
Yeah.
Like Menenga's probably playing center, to be honest.
Yeah.
So it's not him.
No. You're probably looking at Lopez. You might get some minutes out of Anticevic. This is
Darling?
if he plays. Whoever those breakers throw at Jack White, he's going to eat them up. I like the matchup. We do know that he tends to go missing at times, though, but he has been consistent enough. The matchup versus the Bullets, that power forward spot has been weak for them. Who are they playing outside of Bannon? We don't know if he's playing. If he's playing, he's a couple of weeks out from being fit. Adele's not playing. Do they slide Prather up? I don't think Prather's got the strength to go with him. I really like this.
Prather played the role, to be honest. Like even big TSM, Toey Smith Milner's been injured at the moment.
He's out with
So
concussion.
yeah, so will he be? He'll probably be back this week.
Probably
So
be back.
he might get thrown, but realistically, Casey Prather's got to do it, and he can carry the load offensively. But you're right; he's just not big enough to handle a White, and Rocco or Tyrell Harrison can't coexist on the floor at the same time. So Jack White, you would assume, should just be able to eat.
And you'd imagine he's going to shoulder a bit more of the offensive burden with Goulding out. They're going to look to him as more of a focus in the offense to come up with that extra 18, 19 points a game that Bubbles normally pops up for. So I really like Jack White here. Jack White and Doolittle as my two forwards this week is probably what I'm going to look at. Both have favourable matchups, and the price is reasonable for both of them for what you're getting.
Let's have a quick chat about New Zealand. We do have our buy, hold, sell segment this time, so we might do a bit of more of a deep dive in some of these. But Menenga was good in the last one due to there being less centers, him playing that center role. I really like that. They get up and down the floor. PJC, I like. I didn't see anything from Anticevic. I didn't see anything from who's the other? Carlin Davison.
Yeah.
I haven't seen enough there. I don't like Mooney.
No.
Unless it's PJC or Menenga draw a line through New Zealand. And that's regardless of who they're playing. I wouldn't be bringing in anybody. And Lopez has been fine, but I think we can see him bottom out in cash and tackle him again later. But they have Sydney and Melbourne this week. They're both games I'm not interested in really getting players in.
No, they're not great matchups. And we've talked about this all year. As good as New Zealand's schedule has been, there has not been a player that has been kind to us or we've got excited about outside of PJC. Menenga's been serviceable, especially at the price a lot of us picked him up at. But no, it's PJC or nothing. Everyone else we looked at has been disappointing. We thought Jonah Bolden might have a breakout year. He's been putrid. We thought that Taco Fall might, at least give us some shits and giggles, and he's lasted, about 12 minutes before he's just stealing their money on another contract.
Which I expected.
Yeah, it wasn't unexpected, but
yeah,
it's a wasteland outside of the point guard.
Yeah, agreed. I actually got a few DMs about Matt Mooney, and again, with shooters like this, you do get a bit of a heads up when he's going to play well. He seems to be confident. Remember, they went through that 3-week stretch of just playing fantastic basketball.
Yeah.
I want to see the first week of him playing good before I take a punt on him.
Yeah, and we did talk about it at the time. His scores were inflated with 4 or 5 steals in a game. Look, I think he's better than just being a shooter. And I did like that his scores weren't Goulding-esque and just comprised of points. But he's been cold for, 3-4 rounds now?
Yep.
I'm not jumping in, although the price has reduced enough to make it, tempting.
Mate, your Tassie Jack Jumpers, before you go on a Fabian Krislovich rant, I tell you what, I can't wait to see Fabian Krislovic's score. And then you go look at our Instagram and you see Hammer going for a run, going like this. When you realize you own Fabian Krislovic. But before we talk about Fabian for about 12 minutes, Shawnee Mack, and Rob's Punk has brought it up. He has around 70K to make if he maintains these averages. Is he worth a bench spot? He's a little bit dearer than I would consider the usual cash cow, but he's somebody that I think you could get some points out. I just hate the schedule.
Yeah, it's probably worth bringing up the schedule here and having a look at it, because that's the reason where I'm not looking at Shawnee Mack. See, they're right now in round 11, single, double, single. Maybe round 13 you could look at it with 4 doubles in 5 rounds. You know, can you hold him that long?
I just think you've missed his price rises if you do that. If you find yourself in an excellent place financially to get a 170K guy that you consider a cash cow. But I don't think you can do that at guard. All my guards are scoring positions, even on the bench at the moment. If Sean Mack, or obviously I know he's not a forward, but if Sean Mack was a forward, and I think I could get him. I think I could get a 170K forward at the moment and be fine with playing him on singles, but guard's just so valuable.
Yeah. And there's some elite guards with some pretty hefty price tags. When you think about who we're targeting now and over the next couple of rounds, PJC, 400 plus. Cotton will be 400 plus. Kendrick Davis, already 400 plus. You know, maybe that last spot, a lot of us have Cook in there at, a bit over 300K. But I do think Shawnee Mack continues in this kind of form. I reckon he'll be sort of that. I would say at a floor, he would be 23 Supercoach points a game, which is good enough for the new import price of 277K. So look, to borrow one of your sayings and put it on your T-shirt, could make 100K.
Oh, I thought you were going to go, sometimes it's not what you spend, it's what you save. But either way, yeah, cool. Can't wait for those metric shirts to come out. Mate, Southeast Melbourne, if we bring up the schedule again, they do have a double next week.
There's a lot of white in there.
There is a lot of white. But I think if you're holding a Southeast Melbourne player that you're confident in, you could just hold a week. But I'm not looking at bringing in anyone, Owen Foxwell included.
Yeah, look, I took a little something out of the press conference from the coach, Josh King, after that one. And he said something along the lines of, I don't care who is playing. I don't care if you're a superstar. I'm going to play who's hot. That scares me a bit, Supercoach-wise.
Tell you what, it scares Derek Walton. It scares Derek Walton Sr. Derek Walton actually come out and said you don't know half of it. Now, very, very cryptic, but there must be something going on in the background, which scares me. The fact that Sobey was playing bad, Derek Walton Jr. was playing bad, and then they continued to play Sobey. They played Foxwell over them, but that's fine. He did have the super hot hand, but Sobey was awful, and Walton Jr. was just bad through that first period, and they went back to Sobey. Just doesn't bode well. If you told me at the start of the year, and I was one of the truthers that wanted him at the 340K or whatever he was coming in at, if you told me that we'd see a sub 200K Derek Walton Jr., I'd be all over it regardless of the schedule. But mate, looking at this version of him, not a bar.
No, not at all. And there's trouble in paradise when your dad's getting online defending you like he's LeVar Ball. I want to watch this one, though, because if this sorts itself out, like the Cam Oliver situation in Sydney, like this is not that dissimilar to what was going on with Cam Oliver at the start of the year, and he just had a 91 Supercoach points last round. So if Derek Walton Jr. can, sing Kumbaya and make up with Coach King by the time they hit that stretch of 3 triples and his bargain basement price, perhaps it's worth a look then. But I doubt it.
Mate, Illuminati's just popped up. And do you want to know what was the turning point in Cam Oliver's season?
Go on.
He was bitching. He was bitching about his minutes. He was bitching. And you know what Derek Walton Jr. is doing right now?
Bitching.
Mate, we're about to see the turning point in Derek Walton Jr. Oh, mate, we've cracked the code. I tell you what, Derek Walton Jr. at him this week. Thank me later. Adelaide 36.
Worst call you've made. You've made some shockers.
Did we talked about Adelaide? No, we didn't. So we talked about them a little bit when teams were playing them. But you've got DJ 3J out, you've got Trez out this week, and then you've got 50% of Kendrick Davis. Now that is, let me take into account minus the 1, -6, square root of 31. They score about 90 points per game, and I just mentioned about 70 of them.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to have to score. Is it Kadee at 100K? Maybe. Is it Lat Mayan? Is it? But I think that you've got a big fella that might do the bulk of it.
Yeah. Look, there's concerns here with so many out. It just completely throws out the dynamic of that team. They don't know who's putting shots up. Some guys might think it's them when it shouldn't be. Look, Kadee I like, but he's not going to score that well. He'll move the ball. It's the scoring we're missing. I know a lot of guys in the chat have talked about Rasmussen. I wouldn't touch him with your dick, mate. It's
10-foot pole.
40-foot barge pole. Look, I think that's fool's gold. You know, he had a game. It's not going to happen again. The one that I'm looking at out of Adelaide is Isaac Humphries. He's 254,200. He's coming off a 42 Supercoach performance in the absence of Trez. Now, I broke it down a little on our Patreon today. He's played a bunch of games. Half of those games, he's played over 25 minutes. When he plays over 25 minutes, which has been 6 times this season, he's averaged 29.5 Supercoach points. When he's played under 25 minutes, he averages 12.8 Supercoach points, almost half. He's going to play over 25 minutes. They're going to have to look for him. You got some more pass-first guards in there, like Kadee. My only issue is we know Trez is back next week. It's a 1-week rental. Do we have the trades then to pivot elsewhere?
I think getting Hump this week is worth it. All the signs are scoring to him having the bulk of the scoring. They're going to need him. And it doesn't matter if he misses shots. They're just going to have to keep going to him. And if some of these guys that aren't usually the shot makers are the ones that are taking the shots, then he's going to get a lot of boards regardless. Now, we do have to take into account that for the second game this week with Adelaide playing Perth, we do have Kendrick Davis back. A great passer in his own right, has really excelled at getting the ball to Trez. Yep. I think he will excel at getting the ball to Hump as well without Trez being there.
Yeah, I like Humphries. The 2 games, Brisbane, Perth, they're different matchups for him. Hump playing Tyrell Harrison, the first one. It's 2 traditional bigs, back to the basket almost. It'll suit him. He's not going to get dragged out in the perimeter. Playing against Perth, Pinder, Almanza, both have a tendency to leak out and want to shoot threes. Probably doesn't suit him as much, but, you know, he's got an advantage on the inside, and we know Kendrick Davis is back for that second game. So, look, the article I put out was about the centers and how much of a wasteland it is. He's the best of a bad bunch, I think. The other options we looked at were Tyrell Harrison. Look, we know he's better versus genuine big, so the matchup versus Hump might suit him. But he's been subpar, and he's going to drop cash, whereas Humphries will make cash this week. And then if you go to Harrison next week, if that's your trade, you're ahead financially.
You might nearly get a straight swap.
Yeah. Can we just talk about one other option, which little left field? Tanner Groves out of Cairns. Dual position player. He's working his way back from injury. This will be his 4th game back. Now, his minutes have increased each of those games back to where he was 26 minutes, I think, 26 minutes last game, which is at his pre-injury level. I think he's good to go. He could be a point of difference. The only thing is the schedule is pretty gross. It's 2-1-1-2. Would you look at him?
I would if the schedule permitted. At 200K is about the point that I would have a punt on somebody like this. And seeing him drop that 70 odd K, yeah, exciting. 35 break even. I think he will hit it this week, even if he has a down week. But you know what? I like the matchup. So he's got Tassie in the first one, who's going to be defending him, like Ruben Tarangi.
Yeah, Majok Deng. Remembering this is a big guy who can bang inside, but he also can hit the 3. He's going to keep you honest on the perimeter. He's actually a good shooter.
And
I do like
then he's
the
playing
matchup
Matt
for
Hurt
Tassie.
in the next one.
Yeah.
Matt Hurt's not a great defender. He does most of his work on the offensive end. Tanner Groves could be. It's a bit left field. It's a bit poddish. It's the 1-1 that I struggle with. And whether you have the trades.
Yeah.
Look, yeah, it is a punt similar to the Darius Days punt, but Tanner Groves probably has upside.
Could you look at him as a backup that you could move between center and forward and almost carry the rest of the season knowing he's going to give you that price rise, and they've got a really back-ended little bit of their schedule there?
I mean, you don't really take it. Like, if you shouldn't care about the price if you're going to keep him for the whole year because you never get paid back that. But I do think that he's a guy that will be worth 250K. And in a pinch, you can trade him out, and you can get a 300K guy for 50K and stuff for a bloke that you paid 200 for. Yeah, the schedule isn't the best for Cairns.
No.
I don't know. Like, it gets juicy in round 16. If this was round 14, I would say yes. But those 2 singles in a row just don't get me too excited.
All right. So here's probably, a would you rather. And I know these get filthy sometimes, but this one's pretty straightforward. Would you rather Peatling or Groves, given that Illawarra have a run of 5 straight doubles coming up?
Okay. Peatling's in my buy segment later, so thanks for bringing this up early. But Peatling, I think what I can do with the extra 140K cash exceeds what... Like, I think Peatling will score 17 points per game. As advertised, completely fine. But what I can do with that extra 130K to boot is get blokes like Jack White is if I've got Rocco Zakarski, I can have the flexibilities to get to a Humphreys or a Tyrell Harrison. If you're running some mid-tier, like if for whatever reason you fucked up and you've got James Bateman, you can get James Bateman all the way to Bryce Cotton with that extra money that you save. But if you're not going to use it for something like that, then of course I'd prefer Tanner Groves because he's going to score more points. I just think with the way that I've structured my team, whatever Tanner Groves scores is going to be halved anyway because he's just a bench guy for me.
Yeah, look, I think he's mostly a bench guy, but I think there's times where you could start him in a pinch, whereas I don't think you can do that with Peatling. But 100% agree with you, mate, that the price is the kicker, and Peatling, sometimes it's what you save so you can spend it elsewhere. Put that on your T-shirt.
Yeah. Look, let's not talk about Sydney. Their schedule's putrid. If we brought in Adams and Cooks, look, they were 1 week plays. It's time to get off anybody from Sydney. If you've got Cam Oliver, you can hold on to him for a week to just continue to get that cash generation after his big 90 last week. But let's move on to chat about the Illawarra Hawks. So, yeah, we'll talk about Peatling later on, whether you think he's a buy, whether you think he's fool's gold. We'll talk about him then. Darius Days, still there. He's fine. Sure. He's, again, another one of those 200K guys. And if he was having 5 this week, I probably would look at him this week. But that's still 3 weeks away. And then you've got that guard rotation. Never look at Will Hickey unless there's an injury. Trey Kell is at value. Is there anything else you see from the Hawks?
I'm not loving it. You'll talk about Peatling later. I'm not targeting him just yet. They've got 5 doubles coming up in a row shortly, and I'll definitely consider them then. I want to keep an eye on Darius Days just because of how cheap he is and that he's had signs of life return. Like, he was on the table with a do not resuscitate, and all of a sudden he's just started kicking around like a fish out of water. So, look, I'm a watch there. Kell he's solid, but he's still pricey. There's not a lot else I love in that team.
Kell is so consistent that he hasn't worked his way into Supercoach relevance this year. That's the worst thing.
Yeah.
Mate, we've chatted about the teams. If you'd like to support the show, hit subscribe to us on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, Google, please hit the follow button and leave us a review. Look, like the show, it just always helps us. If you've got something interesting to say on Twitter or anything, tag us in it at SC_Matrix, at SC_Hammer, I think it is for you. And get us involved. Follow at Insight Fantasy Sports. We've got our own dedicated Insight NBL Instagram page now, which, you know what, you can get every which way of Hammer's running meme that is just going viral out there. So you can get that on our. You've got it. You've just look. You've got to follow Inside NBL and just see that. It's fantastic. But mate, I'll get stingers made up if buy, hold, and sell become relevant every week. But I just thought that this is maybe a better way to tackle our little trade chats that we have. And look, we're gonna duck straight into the buys. If you don't own Bryce Cotton, he is still a buy this week. Has a 37 break even on a double. He's at 379K. There is still money to be made with money Bryce Cotton.
Yeah, look, he's definitely not a sell. He's 100% a hold, but he could still be a buy at this point. There's not too many other guards on a double outside of PJC that are in that tier. They're an elite company. Just the 2 of them and then Daylight for 3rd.
Yeah, I agree with you. Cotton, if you made the mistake and you don't own him, rectify that mistake. Mate, Jack White. I just think the matchups line up. I think any time that he is on a double-double, he is a buy. Even if he was on a double, I think I would still buy him. Look, next week he's got Illawarra and Southeast Melbourne as well. Not the worst matchups in the world. Look, you've got 4 games where Jack White could go 35 plus. He's 360K. I just don't see a reason not to bring him in. He was the first added for me this week.
Yeah, the back-to-back doubles are tidy, considering that a lot of people own Doolittle. Some may even have Pinder as that other forward spot, and you'll have to move off them next week when they're on singles. The other one, guys, we're considering holding for the other forward spot was Bannon. He's under an injury cloud. We don't quite know what's going on there yet. So to have that spot locked away for 2 weeks, to know it's just going to sit there and give you 30 a game, surely, it's pretty good to know. I'm going to be going with White, I reckon.
Mate, look, when you go buy, hold, sell, I want to cover a lot of people. Now, if you found yourself, and we chatted about our cash generation, we chatted about our team values on our Monday night show. Yep. And if you find yourself with 2.7, 2.8 mil, and you need to make that money, I think you can make that money with Mason Peatling. He's went to the starting lineup. Illawarra have played really well. They did just lose in that nail biter against Southeast Melbourne last week, but I think Peatling was really good in that starting role. I think we even saw Darius Days play better off that bench role, so I don't see him going anywhere. He's elevated his minutes to 17.5 minutes on average since starting. Got 17.5 Supercoach points in that. Really good on the offensive glass, good defensively. I would say the coach really likes his energy as well. I think it's 79K. He could be the last real cash cow.
I think you're on the money there. I expected this role for Mason Peatling when he came across from Melbourne. I got the impression that this is what he was promised. And for whatever reason, it just never eventuated, whether it was because of what was the work experience kid that they gave the head coaching job for a couple of years? Jacomas?
Yeah.
And then he probably hasn't seen a lot of his confidence has got knocked, but this is the role I envisaged for him. And I reckon you're right. At a bare minimum, he's going to make some cash.
And he's got a negative 13 break even. Days has been up and down. Days was actually not that bad this weekend, and Peatling was still playing 17, 18 minutes a night. Yeah. I think if you see Days have one of those down nights, we could see him get that 21, 22 minutes. If Days is cooking, I think this is the floor. I think 16 minutes. Look, I know we've got our BBL Supercoach game going at the moment, but take a bit of shine off the ball. Peatling can go out there and face the openers, and then Darius Days can come on when the rough spinners come on. Yeah. There's a bit to like from Mason Peatling. But look, here's your boy here, my hump, Isaac Humphries.
Okay. I thought you were going to finish the rest of the song.
Yeah, I could. But remember last year when we did that and our video actually got taken down for copyright? Thank you, Universal Studios. But yeah, no, Humphries this week with Trez missing, with all the guys that they're missing, he's going to have to play a big role and he's going to have to play a lot of minutes.
Yeah. All right. Talking of buy and holds, Plebs in the chat here. Now, this is a guy who has his finger on the pulse. He's an absolute savant when it comes to Supercoach. And he's saying Matty Hurt for a 1 week rental, round 12, averages 35 Supercoach points against Brisbane Melbourne with a high of 40. Price is good at the moment. Is this good enough to work its way into your buy column?
No, because it's round 11. And I don't think we've seen the same Matt Hurt since Josh King's come into town. I think that we've started seeing the guards take over, and maybe it's just Josh King. He looks like a guard himself. We see Owen Foxwell have a breakout game. We see Nathan Sobey. Might I remind you, he made 100K. We see blokes like Malik Lewis and blokes like that flourish, but we've actually seen a regression from Matt Hurt. Yeah, look, I don't mind the play. I think that his price is quite nice at the moment. I've got him in my hold category at the moment due to the fact that if you've held him through this period, and I was on the phone to Braino this morning, and he still finds himself having Matt Hurt, with the 23 break even and the impending double next week, I think he's a hold, but I definitely don't think he's a buy this week. If I see more from him this week, he could work his way into the buy category for round 12.
All right, I'm going to give you a little scenario here. I, unlike some people, still have a boost up my sleeve. If Bannon is injured or stays injured, boosting Bannon out to bring in Matt Hurt to sit on your bench this week, be able to massage him to centre next week, or even forward to replace Doolittle then. Is this a play?
I don't hate it, but I genuinely think a better play if you've got the boost is to use that for the extra bit of cash generation. And I know what your team value is at the moment, and it's respectable. But I think if Mason Peatling can make you a little bit more money at the moment, I think the difference between I'm going to go out there and say Matt Hurt's 28 and Peatling's 15 won't make as big of an impact this week to be boost worthy. And you're going to find yourself making 40, 50K with Peatling.
Something to think about.
Yeah, I'm going to be thinking about that one this week. Now, you put this one in, and I probably disagree with it, but it's Kendrick Davis in the buy category.
Yeah, this is a luxury buy. Now, this is purely
Like if you have a boost.
Some of us who are thinking straight. The air must be a bit too thin to think properly when you're up in the top 200.
It's true.
Look, Kendrick, we know he's only playing one out of the 2 games, but he has that 62 from last round. He has the 48 from the game before. His break even is phenomenally low. It's like 9 or something. I wouldn't be starting him, but there is a world, and I've played around with it, where I could have a guard rotation this week of PJC and Cotton on the court, Cook and KD on the bench. I don't hate it. It leaves me a little thin up front, and I can't afford Jack White. That's the thing that's sort of hurting me. But you'll be bringing KD in at, a point in the next week or two anyway. Why not get him at a discount if you can make it work?
Let me tell you something.
Go on.
You're not buying. Let me tickle you for a second.
That was going to be something not tickling.
Yeah, that's what it was. You are not buying Kendrick Davis at a discount. And I'm going to tell you why. He misses this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then plays the next game. Then when he plays the following game, the following week, the 62 drops out due to the suspension. So you're only getting one. No. You're only getting one price rise, not 2.
No, the 62 doesn't drop out. It stays. The 48 drops out.
So 62 was 2 games ago, right?
The DMP doesn't count.
Yeah, but they calculated on the previous yourself. 3 games.
No, yeah, so this week, right? He's going to play 1 game. Yep. So his previous 3 games will be the 62, the 48, and whatever was before that, right?
Yep.
So now this week he plays 1 game. Will be this week's score, the 62, the 48. Next week, the 62 is going to stay in it. They're only a single next week.
Will we make any money out of him at 435K?
I think there's going to be a price rise. I don't know how much it is, but look, as long as he eclipses his break even of about 9, he's going to go up. And you'd imagine he scores more than 9. So whether he goes up 10 grand, 20 grand, that's the difference of can you afford him the next week.
Yeah, true. All right. You've talked me into Kendrick Davis.
I just want to put something else on the screen. It just has a nice little... I saw you did. I just wanted to hang it a little longer. It's like when you hit a shot, you just want to leave your hand up there.
Yeah, I prefer this one. I long for the day when break even isn't so confusing. Please,
100%.
Dude, I tell you what, so Supercoach NBL, they do less articles than you. So
1 week doesn't make a season.
Mate, let's have a look at the hold segment, and I can't wait for the Stingers to come in for this one. But Keandre Cook, due to the schedule, even when you go up there and see him with a high break even like 66, he is a hold this week. I think that's a pretty easy one.
Yeah, I think so. I think given that they're on an octopus run or whatever we're calling it, the eight doubles in a row, he's the kind of guy you can float between your bench, but you can start him. I think he's a luxury to have, especially this week, on your bench.
Let's stay with Brisbane players. I don't like Tyrell Harrison as a buy, but I think if you own him, he is a hold.
Yeah. I think you don't hold him at this... you don't sell him at this point. He's going to 8 doubles, right?
Yeah, and I think you'll find you only lose money when you trade him. I think you'll find him playing himself into some form, and then if you don't like it so long, you just wait until he's 300K again, and you can move him on. He's a hold.
Yeah, he's a hold, and he will be a buy for me at some point. I'm hoping I get enough cash that he's a possibly a bench center. I don't know if I'll get to that point because I know Trez is coming back. I want him at some point, although he does have the power forward flexibility too. So, yeah, we jump on the Patreon. We've discussed Terrell today. He's in there.
Matt Hurt, I think is a hold due to the fact that he's got a 23 break even. He's got a single this week, but is heading into the double. And I know it's a couple singles in a row, but after that, but let's just hold Matt Hurt
Anyone holding him?
if you've got him. What's that?
Has anyone got him?
I was talking to Brano today on the phone, and he still had him, so that's why he's in the hold segment, and he's top 400 at the moment. So yeah, people still are holding Matt Hurt, maybe due to the fact that like if you had Matt Hurt, you've always had bigger fires to put out than Matt Hurt. He's been pretty stable.
Yeah, he's safe.
I have one here that I didn't tell you about.
Oh, spicy.
I think Kareem Lopez is a hold this week. Topped out, I think, at that 280, 290. I trade him out, so I don't own him. But I just think at 250K, with all these injuries, with what I have seen last week, with the way that he plays, he is going to have to be pretty bad to not get a lot of shots up. When people are talking about Carson Davison, when they're talking about Intishevich, look, you've got PJC, you've got a struggling Mooney, you've got Menenga, and you've got Lopez. I see Lopez probably as the number 2 guy if Mooney's not shooting the ball well. At the very least, he's going to hold value, and he goes into a string of doubles. He's not a buy, but if you own him, he's not a trade out.
Yeah, I'd hold at this point if you've held him last week. You're going to have more things to do, and the run's good for New Zealand. The opportunities there through injury. He'll be playing slightly out of position. I see him more as maybe a 3-4 than having to play the 4. But hey, he's going to get opportunity, and they're going to need to get points from somewhere, and he's been good.
Mate, the sell segment starts with Pinder. And I really liked, and I don't want to keep bringing up the articles, but I really liked when you said, Pinder, I can't even look at him.
No, he's dead to me.
Okay, that's it. Looking at Perth players, I think if you don't have Pinder, but you find yourself with 4 or more Perth players, you need to trade at least one out this week. Now, if you've got Henschel, there's a heap of options. You either pay up a little bit further or go down to. I don't love Owen Foxwell as somebody to bring in, but he's at least going to make money this week heading into a double next week. You're not going to lose money in 2 weeks, and it allows you to do a lot more. So maybe if you've got Henschel at guard, there's an option. If you've got Henschel at forward, you could downgrade to Peatling and do whatever you want with the spoils. I just think you need to trade one Perth player out if you're holding 4 or more.
Yeah. I completely agree. There's someone in the chat, Logan, who doesn't agree with you. He's holding 5 and not trading any this week. He's braver than you and I. But look, the ones that we've probably been holding have been Doolittle, Pinder, Henschel, Almanza, possibly maybe Windler for some teams. I think it's easy to go with the ones who you would want to hang on to, and that would be Doolittle. He's the one I want to hang on to for another week. But any of the others, I'm probably getting off, and the first one I'm jumping off is Pinder. Out of any of them, I'm probably holding Henschel and Doolittle.
Well, I think if you find yourself with, so say you trade one out this week and you're rolling through with 3. I think Bryce Cotton's going to be a hold for another week because I think he's still got some money to be made. I know there's been a lot of chat of you can play him on a single, but I don't think you need to this year with how good Cook's been. I would play Cook on a double, probably over Cotton on a single. And I look at a lot of teams and they've got him. We've got PJC, we've got Davis, we've got Trey Kell. Out of how good all these guards have been, I think Cotton's probably a hold for 2 weeks. And then when he tops out, just get him every time he's on a double, I will make a trade for him. But I just don't think he's a hold and play on a single kind of guy this year. Not because of Cotton, because of how good all the other guards have been.
Yeah, 100%. We've got
Uh,
options for us.
I know that you warded people against it weeks ago, but some people still own James Bateman. James Bateman's a sell. 69 break even, coming off a 10. Yeah, easy.
He was fool's gold a couple of weeks ago. He's more fool's gold now. And do I remember correctly that you boosted for him?
I did boost for him, but I did make money out of him, and that's the silver lining.
So silver.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, still can't hear you from up here.
Go captain, my captain. Go captain, my captain.
Mate, let's go back to who are on doubles. We've got Perth, we've got Cairns, we've got Adelaide, we've got Melbourne, we've got New Zealand, and we've got the Bullets. So there is heaps of teams on doubles. Now, we have talked all night about Bryce Cotton. He is going to be the most captain player this week.
Yeah, I think that's your safe one. But there's other options. I like the look of White as a bit of a pod.
I like it as well. He's been good. He is probably third for me, though. Now, I like the matchups and everything like that. That's exciting. That's great. If you really find yourself wanting a pod, then by all means, captain Jack White. But Parker Jackson Cartwright?
Look, I would have put him as number 2. But you talked me out of him earlier tonight, given the matchups. He's got no help. He's playing Melbourne. He's playing Sydney. There's some tough backcourts. Now, when PJC excels, it's against teams that play drops coverage. Those two teams don't really play a lot of it. PJC's mid-range game is so elite that you'd be foolish to play drops on him. I don't think Sydney or Melbourne are going to do that. They're both defensively aggressive. I don't think it suits as much as, Perth's leaky defensive schemes.
What do you think about Christian Doolittle?
I like it, but I've had him as my 1 or 2 for weeks and weeks, and he just hasn't gone on with it. I think he's got a very low ceiling. I don't think we see him getting past about 36.
The thing with him is, I think for him to be a good captain option, you need some of these other guys to shit the bed. Yeah. Hey, I've probably talked myself out of it too. It's probably Bryce Cotton 1, Jack White 2, Parker Jackson Cartwright 3 for me.
Doolittle 4.
Yeah, Doolittle 4.
I just think the way they're playing him and the matchups, he's getting drawn away from the hoop, playing that point forward spot. And yeah, his assist numbers are up, but we're missing that double-double because he's not getting the rebounds like he used to.
What do you think about Isaac Humphries as a captain option? And I haven't captained a center all year, can I say?
Wow. That's a hot take.
I just, he's coming off 40. He's going to play the next game, and he is the only guy that's going to be scoring points. He's got that matchup against Tyrell Harrison, which, again, when bigs bang inside, we see Tyrell Harrison score really well against Sam Froling. I like the matchup for Hump in there. They're just going to keep pounding it inside to him. I think that he will eat Rocco Zikarsky for breakfast. And then we start to see Kendrick Davis coming back. Now, Kendrick Davis without Trez doesn't worry me. I think Kendrick Davis will get his shots up, but I also think that he will find Humphries. And if all these shots are going up from all these guys that we don't consider shooters, look, Lat Mayan, we've seen him go through huge cold stretches. DJ 3J is the guy that bails them out offensively. If he's missing shots and everything, I can see a double-double for Hump in both the games. Look, super pod captain, but I
would be
think it
really
should be brought up. Yeah.
But look, I don't think the defense is or them shooting poorly is a concern. I think it's a positive, like you said. They played the Jackies last week, one of the stingiest defenses around. DJ 3J went 3 of 412, and Big Ice 8. Yet he's 42. So, look, I really like it. I'm
Look,
not that brave.
DJ 3J on his worst day is probably as good as the other guards shooting. So expect something similar.
Solid logic.
Mate, let's answer a couple questions and let's get out of here. We always try to keep it to an hour, so we've got a small amount of time for questions. But Jake, he's been waiting on, and he had a really good question. Which heritage jerseys are your favorite? I don't know if you saw it earlier, Hammer, but I'm going to answer first, and it's the Magic ones. I think that they are straight fire. I was actually looking at them in the store. I might even put it on my Christmas list because they're sweet as fuck.
Yeah. No, agree, mate. They're great. I like the Illawarra Hawks with the old hawk.
Yeah.
I tell you what I really don't like is the jack jumpers going with the old Launceston Casino City ones. I know there's a lot of heritage there, a lot of memories, but for me, this team was the Tassie Devils, and their last heritage one, I bought one of them. That was legit. I love those.
You know what? Todd Blanchfield won me a couple Supercoach comps last year. I said I would buy a Todd Blanchfield jersey, so maybe I could get a Blanchfield Heritage Round jersey. That'd be pretty cool. You know what? There's not too many people in Queensland with a Todd Blanchfield jersey.
No, and all of them live in Mackay.
Mate, Callum B come in early before the show to ask his question. He's asking whether we like White and Illy or Cotton and Zakarski. Again, somebody that doesn't have Cotton. This is a tough one because I think Cotton and White are both must own, but if you don't own any of them, yeah, you probably don't have the funds.
I'd be going White. I think it's easier to replace a guard this week. I'm assuming you got PJC. I would be more inclined to have PJC and say Cook as your backcourt than have a pretty, average front court.
Devil's advocate, and I know this isn't the question that he's asking, but I do think you could find a way to get White and Cotton. We're talking $390, we're talking $360. Like, you could find a way, I think, by maybe trading one of those higher end forwards, maybe trading a Doolittle, trading some guys like that to have a crack. But for me, sitting Illy on the bench doesn't sound like huge upside. I like Cotton and Zakarski, so I'd be going the other way to you. I know it's like not who you're starting, but whether you're starting a Menenga or starting a Cook, you might even get the same this week as well. And I think Cotton will outscore White.
I reckon if you get creative, you can come up with some better combos.
Yep. Mate, still just ducking through all these questions. It's too early to bring in Pedro Bradshaw coming off the injury. We need to see more, right?
We do. The schedule's not great. There's a little bit of a purple patch towards the end of the year or end of the season. But, yeah, for now, no thanks. The dual position is nice, though.
Mate, cash versus points is interesting this week. Brett's looking at grabbing KD on the single ahead of White if we're worried about getting priced out. I know you said that White is a really good guy to bring in, but if you think you can't afford KD next week, do you think maybe 3 games of KD outscore 4 games of White?
Yeah, look, KD is on a single next week. So you're essentially holding him through 2 singles at a pretty inflated price. I don't think. Look, if you can afford 435, you can afford 450. I don't see him jumping by that much. And even if you get him the week after, you jump off Jack White after the doubles. I think you can cover those guard positions better. I would be going White over KD.
Mate, what do you think, Jack Frost in the chat? What do you think about holding boosts till the last few rounds? I've got an opinion on this.
I'd love to hear it.
I think it's wasted. I think that where it's going to be very hard to get that cash generation later on, and we saw it chatting to DVG last year, and he used all his boosts by round 8, and he generated that cash early and often. And yeah, you know what, injuries pop up later on in the season, and you do need to trade them out. But cash generation doesn't pop up later on in the season. That's probably why in our socials and on our Patreon, I've highlighted Mason Peatling this week, because I do think that he's genuinely a cash cow. Now, if it was round 4, we would boost for Peatling. If you're holding a boost, you could just boost for Peatling right now and use that cash to make sure you've got the money for Davis. Make sure you've got the money for Trez. Like, if you're playing Henschel at guard, at forward, and you trade him out at 220K to Mason Peatling for 80K, you can go Doolittle to Trez next week. Like, that's how I've used my boosts this year.
Yeah. I think you've talked me into using my last boost. The only reason you probably wouldn't be is if you're out of contention for overall and you're trying to ruin someone's life with your head-to-head comp.
And we're in some pretty big cash head-to-head comps as well. So, yeah, look, if it's going to win you some cash and you're sitting there at 5,000th or something, you're not going to win a car this year. Sorry for highlighting that. You're not going to win a car this year if you're sitting at 5,000th. So, yeah, just make sure you win your cash comps. Mate, there's some good questions. There's lots of chat about Lopez's projected score this week. Apparently, it was going off like a frog in a sock. Dennis had a good one. Is that a big stack of beers in the background? And yes, it is. You can look at the back there in behind me, and you've got 6 cartons of beers just sitting there waiting for our next podcast.
You know what's funny? Here's a little fun fact. You're the only bloke I know who buys his beer online and has it delivered.
Mate,
Can we get them as a sponsor?
if I said I haven't emailed them, that would be a lie. So I'm not going to give them a plug because they dogged me.
But I'm still using them.
yeah, they're great value. Slide into my DMs, mate. Pleb was talking about Rasmussen, mate. I was sort of sitting on the fool's gold sort of category. What do you think?
I don't like it at all. Like, he may pop up again for one game and then KD's back. I think Nick Marshall will get more burn. I think he's probably the better play. But look, Rasmussen's only featured in 3 games this year, and he has scored 0, 0, and then 25 last game. You know, I don't like it. I don't think it's a big enough sample size. And you know what? If he went off for 25 again, I just wouldn't be upset because, you know, worst case scenario, the team's back in 2 weeks' time and everything's back to normal. I'm not buying it. I'm calling it fool's gold still.
Mate, I have our last question here, and I just lost it. Curdy in the chat, kill, marry, or fuck? Mooney, Delhi, or Cook?
Is this in relation to the picture or the question?
Sorry, start bench cut. I got the question wrong.
Good.
Mooney, Delhi, Cook. What are you doing there?
Oh, start Cook. I'm going to go Pod, bench Mooney, and cut Delhi. Delhi's looking a little rough right now.
Yeah. So I'm killing Mooney. I'm marrying Delhi, and I'm fucking Cook. So there you go.
What a guy.
Mate, I think that's enough dribble for one night. You can tell when we hit the hour and 5 minutes that we've had enough. Appreciate all your questions in the chat. Excited to hear how you all go when we come back next week. I believe Hammer's away for work, so I've got to work on a co-host for Monday. We might see a little cross-pollination from some of our other podcasts. But good luck to everybody out there. And, mate, have a good night.
Absolutely. See you next Wednesday.
Cheerio.